All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight, presented by FanDuel here at the Volume. Happy Saturday, everybody. I hope your guys' weekends are off to a good start. I'm supposed to have today off, but my wife is working one of her bigger events of the year, and I've got nothing but my brother's baby shower later today. So I was like, you know what? There were some good basketball games on last night. Drinking my coffee, watching them, and I had some thoughts. So figured might as well get a reaction video in. We're just going to hit on Cavs Warriors and on Lakers Kings. I know I said that I would also touch on Celtics Nuggets and that Timberwolves Grizzlies game, but I'll get to those on Monday. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Volume's YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter at @JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. I also do video breakdowns there. I plan on doing one later today if I have some time that covers the pick and roll issues that the Lakers were having with the Kings. And then last but not least, if you missed one of these videos and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish them, you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. So, Cavs Warriors, super entertaining game. Very playoff feel, not just with the intensity and how hard the teams were playing and the defense, but also because of all of the matchup attacking. That's always what reminds me the most of the playoffs, because it's really this simple. When you get into a playoff series, everything is scouted. Everybody knows each other's strengths and weaknesses. So you're not just going to go down and run your sets and get great stuff every single time. So it becomes kind of more of a personnel matchup. You're looking at what personnel do we have that can punish specific personnel on their team and vice versa. And you saw a lot of attacking Darius Garland in the post with guys like Andrew Wiggins. That's a legitimate playoff chess match type of move that you would see. You saw Steph attacking the Cleveland bigs, both on switches and when they were too low in drop coverage. Some of you Celtics fans who watched that game probably had some PTSD watching that. Donovan Mitchell and Karis LeVert attacking Jordan Poole every time they had a chance because he's one of the weakest perimeter defensive players on the Warriors. Steph got a lot of attacks in on Darius Garland late in the game because, as crazy as it sounds, he's a lot bigger than Darius Garland, and Garland's not a great defensive player, but a real chess match type of feel, and that type of chess match is going to go the way of the Warriors. As I've always said, I don't trust any team in the league in terms of management, coaching, players, experience, continuity, talent, all those things, the way I trust the Warriors. And a big part of that coaching part, that experience and continuity part, that manifests in these chess matches. And it was interesting because, I'll give you an example. So, Donovan Mitchell versus Steph Curry. So, Donovan Mitchell was amazing in this game. He had 29 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. He made a ton of big shots, big plays as a passer. His development as a passer this year is a whole other conversation. The leap he's taken with shot making and with passing has taken him from somewhere in the 20 range of player in the league to firmly in the top 10, maybe even top 5 this season. That's how much of an improvement he's made there. But late in the game, when we got into the last handful of possessions, he got thoroughly out-executed by Steph Curry. He missed a couple of pull-up jumpers short, which will happen. That's going to happen when you're tired, and he was probably tired. But at 98-98, he missed a pull-up jumper on Steph at the top of the key, like a step back. And Steph contested the shot and ran out the other way. And Donovan Mitchell kind of on his follow-through just kind of sat there and looked at the rim for 3 or 4 seconds and made no effort to get back. And transition defense is all about floor balance. Generally speaking, most coaches will tell you if you're, in the corner, you can crash before you get back. If you're in the dunker spot, you can crash before you get back. But if you're at the top of the key or if you're on the wings, the general idea is to get back because you're unlikely to get the rebound, and in all likelihood, you're the only guy that has a chance to stop in transition. Donovan Mitchell took that jumper from the top of the key. His primary responsibility is in that position after the shot goes up is to get back in transition defense. He didn't. Darius Garland ran back from the wing, but he was late. They threw it out ahead to Steph, and Steph got a layup that effectively amounted to the final lead. It was the last lead change of the game. That's a critical defensive mistake from Donovan Mitchell down the stretch of the game. And then on the dagger 3, the one that Steph hit, it was an illegal screen. I mean, it was one of the worst illegal screens I've ever seen. Klay Thompson literally just threw a block. But there are probably roughly 30 to 40 illegal screens per NBA game that go uncalled, and you'll see another half dozen or so get called, right? You can't bank on that getting called. And even if it was an illegal screen, the way that action is defended is the same regardless of whether it's illegal or not, because there's always that chance that Isaac Okoro is going to get caught on the screen even if Clay sets a legal screen. Now, that specific action, you've got Steph with the ball at the top of on the left wing. He's trying to come downhill towards the right, and they're coming up with Clay. And they usually do one of two things there. Most of the time, they run what's called a ghost screen, which is really just a fancy way of saying that he just slips the screen. So he runs up like he's going to set a screen, but before he sets the screen, he'll just vacate out off to the left wing, and it throws the defenders in a loop usually. But in that specific case, no matter what, there's only two ways to guard it. You're either going to switch it outright, because it's a guard-to-guard screen with two shooters. So Okoro would basically signal to Donovan Mitchell like, hey, you're taking Steph, I'm going to take Clay as he comes off of this. Or you're going to do a brief hedge before you recover. So Donovan Mitchell, as he's coming up behind Clay, would just kind of lunge out and just swipe with his left arm. Just a swipe. Just something to dissuade Steph from that easy pull-up three before he vacates out to get Clay. And instead, he just did nothing. He just kind of jogged behind Clay and stood there while Clay threw the block. And then there was nobody guarding Steph when he knocked down the game-winning three. So, like, at the end of the day, that's two players that have both played like top 5 players this season. Both of them made top 5 in my player rankings on Thursday. Both of them are playing at the absolute peak of their powers offensively, but we got to a chess match at the end of the game, and Steph made all of the winning plays, and Donovan Mitchell made critical defensive mistakes. And those of you guys who've been watching my show all season know that I've been calling this specifically out with Donovan Mitchell. Made a bunch of them against the Celtics as well. He's been particularly bad on defense in crunch time this season. That's an issue, and that's something he's got to work out, because that could be the difference between him being a first-round exit type of team with the Cavs this year or somebody that has legitimate aspirations. Steph made every big play down the stretch of this game. They were down 8 with about 4 minutes left after that wild sequence where they, I think Jordan Poole flagrant fouled Karis LeVert on a step-back three. They ended up going up by 8. Then every possession down the stretch, it was Steph. He hit a 3 against Jarrett Allen and drop on the left wing where Jarrett was way too low. Then he got Allen on a switch on the left wing and beat him off the dribble, which got Draymond Green open. He dropped it off, and Dre made a basket. There was the relocation 3 on Darius Garland. So this was kind of an interesting play because he drove into Darius Garland's chest, and Darius did his job. He held his ground, took the contact in the chest, and cut Steph off. But here's the difference. Steph got cut off, gave the basketball up, and then sprinted back out to the three-point line. As soon as Darius Garland took that contact in the chest, he stood up out of his defensive stance and quit on the play. So Jarrett Allen was like, what am I supposed to do? And he ran over and threw a late contest, but it was too late. Steph was wide open on the left wing. That was the 3 that tied the game at 98. So again, good defense from Darius Garland for half the possession, but didn't finish the possession. And then on the run-out layup for 198, we talked about that. That was bad transition defense from Donovan Mitchell. And then on the dagger 3, we talked about that action as well. But every single play down the stretch, from when they were down by 8 to when they effectively iced the game 103-99, it was Steph making the play. In the last 3 games, Steph is averaging 42 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists on 82% true shooting, which is just ridiculous. In clutch situations this year, so when the score is within 5 points with less than 5 minutes left, he's 12 for 22 from the field, 5 for 12 from 3, and 7 assists to just 2 turnovers. He's a few Warriors wins away from being the MVP frontrunner. Because as good as Giannis has been, his MVP front-running status is largely based on how good the Bucks have been in crunch time. He's been, he's playing good on defense, but it's not his best defensive season. His perimeter shot has completely fallen apart. He's really only dominating in the paint. He's been good. Giannis has been Giannis. He deserves to be called the best player in the league right now. But Steph is actually playing a little bit better basketball than him. The team just isn't winning enough to make it all work. But they've won a couple in a row here. And if he can get the Warriors back into that, top half of the Western Conference standings where they're, in a home court in the first round type of thing, at the level he's playing, you're looking at a third MVP there. Couple of quick notes on the Cavs. The guards, it's going to be a legitimate issue here because Darius Garland was pretty bad on both ends of the floor tonight. Pretty bad defensively, which we talked about. His offensively, one of the things I've noticed with Darius Garland throughout his career, a lot of guys compare Darius Garland to Kyrie Irving because he's really shifty guard, right? I don't really see that comparison, mainly because Darius is a better passer than Kyrie ever was. And then on the offense, like a scoring perspective, Kyrie's just, there's a massive chasm between those two. And one of the main reasons why is Darius Garland, like a lot of young players in the league, or young players in general now, shoot really far down below, like almost below his chin is where he starts his shooting pocket. And the problem with that is it makes it extremely difficult to get shots off. There are a handful of guys, like Steph shoots like that, but he's the best shooter of all time. 2, he's arguably the best ball handler in the league. And 3, he's 6'3" and a much better athlete than Darius Garland, so he can get to his spots a lot easier. So, like, he's kind of the exception to the rule. But Kyrie Irving elevates into his shot and has a higher release point, which allows him to actually get off shots against elite defenses. A guy like Darius Garland, I am concerned about his ability to get to his spots and knock down shots against the better defenses in the league. And he really, really struggled last night. And then fundamentally, you got to look at, like, can you win with 2 small guards in your primary lineups that don't defend? And I mean, Donovan Mitchell, he doesn't defend, but at least he can make some plays with his athleticism on the periphery. So he can grab contested rebounds. Like, and he grabbed a huge contested rebound late in this game. I think it was when it was like 98, 95 or something like that. He's going to make the occasional defensive play with his athleticism because he's just such a big, strong athlete at the guard position. But you're not getting any of that out of Darius Garland. He's just completely overmatched. This season, when Darius Garland doesn't play, they're 6-0, and when he does play, they're 2-4. Now, does that mean you trade Darius Garland? I don't know. That's not an easy question. I would certainly give this a lot longer. I'd ride it out till at least the deadline. But there's no point in going down prideful. You made a trade for a really good guard that does everything that Darius Garland does and does it better and is a more functional athlete in your defensive scheme, although he's flawed there. So, yes, I get that you drafted Darius. Yes, I get that the fan base is attached to him. I'm sure Cavs fans will recoil when they hear this. But at a certain point, you got to look at this and go, I've got Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. I've got Donovan Mitchell. Would I be better served? Karis LeVert's playing well. Would I be better served with a wing out of that specific position? Is there a team out there? Like, could I call Toronto and try to functionally swap Darius Garland for like an OG Anunoby? Would I be better off if I did something like that? Would Toronto appreciate having the offensive firepower with all the size that they have on the perimeter? Like, those are the kinds of questions that Cleveland's going to have to ask themselves as we get closer to the trade deadline. Won't do anything now. Too small of a sample size. You got to ride this out to the deadline. But you got to pay really close attention to how you're losing these games. And a couple of their recent losses have been because of their weak size and physicality and defense in the backcourt. Last note from the Cavs, I was so impressed with Evan Mobley last night. He had 20, 13, and 4. Mainly his physical aggression. He's still pretty thin, but he fights hard for position. He's fearless when he's attacking smaller defensive players. He had 2 specific post moves in this game that I liked. There was one in the first half where he got Andrew Wiggins on a switch, and he just battled for positions. And Wiggins is a big, strong man now, and Mobley's still basically a kid. And he's jockeying for position against Wiggins and actually fights and gets a decent spot on the floor about 10 feet from the rim, and then just does a really physical, like violent rip through to the baseline and finishes with his left hand on the other side of the rim. That was impressive. And then he got Lamb on a switch in the fourth quarter and made a really good aggressive post move towards the middle of the floor and made like a sweeping hook shot in the lane. That was actually a big play in this game. I like him a lot. I like his physical aggression. I like how quick his feet is compared to so many of these other lanky defensive bigs that have come through the league. He's really, really exciting. And even how good do you got to feel as the Cavs where like your Darius Garland problem is not that big of a problem because of how good Jared Allen is, how good Evan Mobley is, and how good Donovan Mitchell is. All right, let's talk about the Kings and the Lakers. So the Lakers took a 13-point lead late in the second quarter of this game, and then they let Sacramento get it back to 4 with like 2 minutes left. They were up 13 with about 2 minutes left, and by halftime it was back to 4. And then the rest of the game was really about as back and forth as you could possibly imagine until the Lakers went cold at the end of the game. Sacramento went on an 8-0 run at the end of this game. So first of all, they get a stop, but Anthony Davis gets buried under the rim by Sabonis, And as a result, there's a rebounding foul. I think Patrick Beverley saw him in trouble and came flying over and ended up fouling Sabonis. On the ensuing possession, Harrison Barnes ends up getting a bailout foul at the end of the shot clock, so he makes 2 free throws. Then they go down the other way, and in pick and roll, Russ just for some reason takes an impossible bank shot leaning towards his left and misses it. Very next possession, I was just talking about that ghost screen action I was telling you guys about. Well, I believe it might have been, I think it was Terrence Davis. It might have been Davion Mitchell. I can't remember. But Austin Reeves was guarding one of the other Kings guards. Might have even been Malik Monk. But they ran up and set a ghost screen. So, ran past De'Aaron Fox and didn't actually set a screen. And in the process, Austin Reeves froze for just a second, but then recovered out. And Russell Westbrook just quit on the play. Didn't switch out to the other Kings guard, and also didn't stay in front of De'Aaron Fox. Literally just let him drive around. I tweeted out the clip earlier today. It was one of the most bizarre defensive plays I've ever seen. Fox just goes right downhill and scores. Now it's a 4-0 run. Then they double Anthony Davis in the post, and on the backside, Patrick Beverley ends up missing a pretty decent look from 3 at the top of the key. And then De'Aaron Fox hits a really tough turnaround over Austin Reeves. And from there, Lonnie Walker missed a 3 out of a timeout. That was kind of they were already down 4 at that point. And then Harrison Barnes made 2 free throws, and then the game was over. So, I mean, it's kind of a depressing loss if you're a Lakers fan, right? Because you're kind of hanging around the entire game. You have a late lead at 114, 112, and then you blow it, giving up an 8-0 run. I mean, but here's the reality. I got to... Anthony Davis continues to be one of the most frustrating players that I've ever covered because, you look at the box score and you look at the production and you look at, the defensive highlights for most possessions, and it's so good. But the types of mistakes he makes, particularly in transition defense and particularly in box-out situations, can be so frustrating. He got bullied against the Clippers in the second half on the offensive glass, and then critical possession. It's 114-112. There's 2 minutes left in the game. You have the lead. You get a stop, and you don't box out Sabonis. He buries you under the rim. They get an extra possession, and that triggers their run. That's the kind of stuff where it's oh, man, Anthony Davis, you can't make that mistake as a guy who calls himself one of the top 10 players in the league. You can't make that particular mistake. This season, the bouts of bad transition defense and the bouts of bad defensive rebounding from Anthony Davis have been really problematic for this team. And they've lost games because of it. That Kings game last night, I'm not going to say that's the reason they lost, but that was a big play when you had a late lead. And then they lost that game up in Denver earlier this season strictly because Anthony Davis wasn't running back in transition. The Lakers in particular were really struggling with Sacramento's pick and roll in the fourth quarter. And if I have some time later today, I'm going to make a video about this because I think it's really interesting. So basically, so early in the quarter, it was Chimezie Metu and De'Aaron Fox, and they were guarding it with Wenyen Gabriel and Troy Brown Jr. And so you kind of, when you're running a drop coverage, like we always talk about, guard chases over the top of the screen, right? So De'Aaron Fox is coming downhill, Troy Brown Jr. is trailing him, right? Wenyen Gabriel, because Troy Brown Jr. is behind the ball handler, he has to step over and kind of contain the ball handler while they're getting downhill. But there's an important thing that's supposed to happen in that coverage. If the guard gets completely out of position to where the big has to step up, then the guard is supposed to peel off of the guard and run down to the big and box him out of the lane so that he can't get an offensive rebound. And they got killed in that specific matchup because, Troy Brown Jr. would chase Fox over the top. Wenyen would step up. Fox would miss a short jump shot, basically being bracketed by Wenyen Gabriel and Troy Brown Jr., and Chimezie Metu would come in unguarded to tip dunk the basketball into the hoop. Then there was another play later in the a few possessions later. Now Anthony Davis checks back into the game. Same type of deal. Austin Reeves is chasing De'Aaron Fox over the top of the screen. Anthony Davis steps up. They're bracketing Fox. He misses the shot, but Austin doesn't dig down to the big, and there's Domantas Sabonis making a layup right at the front of the rim. So finally, at the end of the fourth quarter, they did what you're supposed to do with the peel-off switches with Patrick Beverley on De'Aaron Fox, and they did it twice, and Beverley did his job. Peeled over the top, applied some back pressure. As soon as he saw Anthony Davis step up to contain, he ran down and boxed Domantas Sabonis out, but AD couldn't get a damn stop. And 2 times in a row, he gave De'Aaron Fox way too much space, and he knocked down back-to-back contested jumpers over the top. And so that's what's frustrating is like early in the fourth quarter, you're struggling because the guards aren't doing their job. Then you bring in the guy that I've been calling the defensive player of the year, and he's not doing his job, and he can't get a stop on De'Aaron Fox, who's a mid-level point guard in this league, in those isolation situations off of switches. And so, that specific action, and I'll try to break it down in a video later today, like I said, if I have some time. So keep an eye on my Twitter feed. But yeah, that was the specific action that was killing LA down the stretch of this game. Couple of quick notes on Sacramento. They're up to 5-6 now. They're 5-2 since their 0-4 start. In that span, they're 5th in offense, 20th in defense, 11th in net rating. On the season, De'Aaron Fox is averaging 23, 5, and 6 on 62% true shooting. In crunch time this season, he's 15 for 24. Excuse me, that 23, 5, and 6 on 62% is just in this last 7-game span when they're 5-2. In crunch time this season, De'Aaron Fox, 15 for 24 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, and he's perfect from the line. So he's been incredible in crunch time, although it hasn't necessarily amounted to wins for them in clutch situations over the season. Kevin Huerter is also having a great season, 50% from 3 on 8 attempts. He had another big shot in the fourth quarter last night. And then Sabonis made 2 huge plays down the stretch on the offensive glass, one in pick and roll and one on that offensive rebound against Anthony Davis that I told you about. This is a fun team. They don't defend, and they're likely not going anywhere, so we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about them this season, but they are fun. A couple of quick notes on the Lakers. I wonder how much longer the upper management is going to watch this team spiral out of control. Like it's a now or never kind of thing. Now or never was this summer, but now it's definitely now or never. You're 2-10. Like at a certain point, you've got to, if you're going to give them a fighting chance, give them a fighting chance now before they're too far below in the standings. If you're not going to give them a fighting chance, then stop making LeBron play through foot soreness. Stop making Anthony Davis play through lower back soreness. If you do not care about this team and you do not care about what they can accomplish, then pull the freaking plug before somebody gets hurt, because you keep talking about next summer. And it won't matter if one of them suffers a serious injury. So like this weird thing where you're like beating the hell out of LeBron and Anthony Davis to try to win games, but not actually giving them the requisite pieces to compete. It's just horrific leadership from the Lakers up top. And I wish they would just pick what the heck they want to do. If you don't believe in these guys and you don't want to give them a fighting chance, then pull the plug before one of them gets hurt. All right, that's all I have for today, guys. As always, I sincerely appreciate your support. Like I said, we'll get to some of the other games from Friday night and the Saturday-Sunday games on Monday. I will see you guys after the weekend.